Welcome back to part two of the Dagger build. I am super excited to continue working on this thing, and I am glad that you tuned in to YouTube's most epic knife-making channel, the OG Frenchie. I am so epic. Everyone knows me. I've got like a bajillion subscribers. To the 5 people watching this, thank you for tuning in. We're gonna make this thing look dope. That's why I'm so popular, because I'm cool. This thing gonna be dope, dude. This thing gonna be so dope. You don't even know. The kids are saying it's dope nowadays. Oh, that's dope, Dad. Yeah, so we gonna be making a dope Dagger dog. Take 2. Welcome back to the Forge. Welcome back to Frenchie's Forge, part 2 of the Dagger build. I am super excited. Can you see my head moving like this? It means I'm excited to continue making this dagger. Oh, man. What is the matter with me, y'all? Daggum. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about what we're going to be doing in this episode. We are first going to be starting off by finishing out these bevels. I need to thin them out some and re-flatten them to where they're nice and even. Once we do that, I have a pretty cool idea for the ricasso area. I was thinking that it would be pretty cool to put like a little half moon into the ricasso, like a zoop and a zoop, kind of like a little rounded area here. To do that, I have an oscillating spindle sander, but the drums are aluminum oxide. It would probably take forever to grind through this hardened steel. So I'm thinking that I may try to utilize the grizzly grinder for that. I've been messing around with it some the last couple of days. In the last episode, if you watched, you'll remember that I've been having some troubles with it overheating and running it, I guess, too hard. So I've kind of fine-tuned it, turned down the speed quite a bit, and it seems to be doing a little bit better. I think the slower that you run it, the longer you can get out of it before it starts to get really too hot. So, still kind of tinkering with that. But after we finish the bevels, you can probably see it back here, I'm going to try to turn it into like a small wheel attachment sort of thing. Now, looking at it, I think that that can be accomplished with the stuff that it comes with. It comes with the flat platen, and I think that by removing the actual platen and getting that out of the way, you could probably utilize this top wheel here. As long as you got this platen thing tilted way out like this, we could potentially use this as a small wheel to grind in that ricasso area. So you can kind of see the idea here. Is it perfect? No, but will it work? I think so. I think there's enough clearance back there, and I'll have to mess around with it some. We'll see here in a minute if we can make that work. But I think it would be really cool to put a couple of shapes into the ricasso area. So let's first start out by grinding the bevels, and then we'll jump into that. Okay, so I just went from a 36 grit belt over to a 120 grit belt to smooth out these bevels a little bit. And while I was doing it, I was kind of looking at the back side of this thing and remembering that the file part that's going to be left here is kind of on the rusty side. It's kind of got a dirty, sort of rusty look to it. So I was thinking I'm going to try something to darken that up and get rid of the rust. I could take a wire wheel to it to maybe get rid of some of the rust. I could use like a rust remover. I think what I decided to do was use some brass black. I also have some liquid gun bluing solution, this Presto Mag. I'm not sure what the difference is. I've used brass black before with pretty good success, especially on metal. On my Maker's Mark, it darkens it up. But I thought before I finish grinding this, I want to try to address the finish that we have on the file part. So let's go ahead and try that out. I'll probably squirt some of this brass black onto the file texture, let it sit and let it blacken that part before we move on to finishing out the bevels. Okay, so we're ready to put on the brass black. I just put some tape over the bevels just to kind of protect it, I guess, from overspraying the brass black. Not that it would matter, because we're still going to do some grinding and it would end up taking the finish off of the brass black, but just to do it, you know, to hopefully help mitigate that. I have transferred it into a little spray bottle, so we're going to take it outside, spray down the file part with the brass black, leave it on there, let it do its thing, and then we'll cut it back on and see what it looks like.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, so we've let the brass black sit on this for a little while now, and you can tell that it definitely darkens it up. And I think that that's going to be a way better look than the rusty look. So now we're pretty much ready to peel some of this off, as I think for the most part it has done its job. It has kept the bevels from getting the brass black on it. And it'll still have a little bit on there, but like I said, we're not done touching up the bevels. We'll still have work to do with those, so we'll get this thing cleaned up more. But I think that this is a cool little trick, especially if you're doing a file knife and you don't want it to show rusty bits. You can use some of this cold bluing stuff and yeah, kind of change the look of it, make it a little bit darker. Now let's go ahead and continue with grinding the bevels. So now that I have the tool rest off and we removed the actual flat platen to the flat platen assembly, and we have it kind of cocked out to the front, and the platen arm is sitting in the tool rest slot instead of up here where it would normally go, I think we got this thing tuned to where it's going to run. So that's actually pretty cool, and it's something that I have not tried before, but was just kind of sitting here looking at it last night thinking, you know what, I think that we can make this happen. Now there's not a ton of clearance back here, but it's just enough for this thing to run. So I think that this will work out pretty good. The tracking, you got to run it pretty far, at least on mine, to the left here, and then, you know, it'll only go about there, but I think that that's going to be good enough. So it seems to run pretty solid. Let's go ahead and try to cut these little half moons in on the ricasso. So that actually worked out pretty good. I'm glad that I decided to give that a go. That literally took me maybe 2 minutes to grind those little half moons into the ricasso area. That would have taken forever on the oscillating spindle sander with the aluminum oxide. So now that we got those put in and we can get our stuff back on it, kind of get an idea of what it kind of does. It just adds a little bit more character to the blade. And I think once we get the handle on there, it's gonna look really cool. It's gonna have a lot of different, you know, profiles and shapes and edges to it, and just adds a little bit to the overall look of the knife. So now that we've got that step done, we're gonna go ahead and jump to working on the handle. And I've got that piece right here. So we're gonna start by picking out the right drill bit and getting this drilled and ready to fit the tang down inside of it. Let's do it. Okay, so now that we have the tang hole drilled, we're just trying to fit it on here and get it to go all the way. We're pretty darn close. So what I'm going to do here at this step is we're going to take the handle and our little bolster piece off. We're going to get a Sharpie, and we're just going to pretty much mark out the tang here, kind of where the bolster ends on it. And then we're going to put the bolster back on it. And now with our mark here, we'll be able to take a scribe and scribe the backside where this bolster stops. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can then remove this piece, put our block of wood back on here, and it's probably hard to pick it up in the light, but you know, then you can kind of see where your handle is at and where that line is scribed. And then that way you can kind of do some more fine-tuned fit up without having to try to look past the bolster piece. So now it's pretty much just a matter of kind of continuing filing this out until we can get it to sit in there just perfect. Trying to get a close-up there so you guys can see. This process is kind of slow and tedious, but I feel like doing this, you know, taking your time at this step and getting a really, really good tight fit is only going to help things out. That way we don't have a bunch of slop and, you know, a bunch of play in it when we go to glue it up. We're also trying to pay attention too to the alignment of the handle. Is it in line? Is it, you know, cocked to one side? And it was earlier, but with the file, I've been able to kind of level it out some. So we're going to keep going with this and just continue filing until we can get this handle down to the mark that we scribed. All right, so we are outside, right out by the forge. Look how green the grass is. It is March 15th or 16th. It's been really weird this winter. It's been super warm. We almost had some tornadoes yesterday. Now all of a sudden it's beautiful out, the birds are chirping, and we're working on the Dagger, so that's cool. I just wanted to show you guys where we're at with this thing. So you can see the little tiny gap that we have left here, which isn't much at all. We've got this thing filed out pretty good, and we have also got it to the point where it's super duper close. So what I wanted to try was to hot fit the handle onto the tang. Trying that for the first time. This episode has 2 hot fits that I have not tried before, so that's pretty cool, as I am somewhat new to knife making. In fact, I was looking at my list that I keep inside the shop of the number of knives that I have made thus far. I want to say this is knife number 23 that I have ever made. So that's kind of cool. I like keeping track, and yeah, just, you know, for my own sake, to be able to go back and look and say, oh, okay, I remember what I did there, which 23 knives, I pretty much remember all of them. At some point, if I keep going, I probably won't, but anyway, that is cool. So I do want to try to hot fit this onto the tang. The other thing too is we have to get a pin in this to be able to pin the tang and the handle together. And this blade has been tempered, but it has not been annealed yet. So we're gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I'm thinking we'll put this up in the vise, put some heat on the tang to anneal it, and at the same time we'll try to dab this handle on here for a few seconds to see if the burn in trick actually works. So stay tuned and you'll find out. Well, there you go. Now we have a handle that has fit onto our hidden tang really quite well. The heating process of this worked super well. You can tell there's hardly any wiggle room here. I'm like barely moving this thing and the whole thing is moving. That's good. That means there's not a ton of slop in here. And that's pretty much due to just taking your time, filing it out, and then hot fitting it the rest of the way. Okay, so now that we have our hole drilled and countersunk to accept the pommel, It fits in there pretty good. Now what we're going to need to do is pretty much bring this over to our belt. Get it in focus. There we go. We're going to bring it over to the belt, and we're going to get this part that says HSS 3/4 off of there. To do that, I'm going to put it into the drill here and just spin this up against the belt. So that's a pretty good tip to, work on stuff that is cylindrical, what you want to sand that could possibly fit into a drill bit. Okay, so now that we got our holes drilled and we have our pinhole done and pommel hole done, we're ready to move on to shaping the handle. But before we do that, we're going to pull off this bolster and kind of shape that outside. So we pretty much have the handle shaping done for the most part, and I didn't really film much of this, only because I've never done it before and wasn't really sure what the exact process was going to be. But this is kind of what we got going on here. I'm going to try to file in some spirals into the handle, and to do that I just pretty much marked out sections on the handle. You can kind of see the remnants of the quadrants and the lines that I put on it, and then just took some time to kind of connect the lines in a diagonal fashion. So I've seen all kinds of really cool handles, and I'm not going to do anything too fancy. Being my first one, I'm going to keep it pretty simple, but I think I'll just go ahead and use like a round file to file in some diagonal lines on here, just to kind of give a little bit more grip and texture to the handle. now that we've spent a little bit of time filing in our little twist design on the handle, pretty much at a good stopping point, I think. I could keep going a little bit deeper and, you know, it might look a little better, but this is incredibly tedious work here. Starting with a small file and working up to a little tiny round file and then to a larger round file just took quite a while to do that. Plus, you know, I think overall it looks pretty good for the most part as is. Okay, so we got the handle glued up. We got my maker's mark put on there, and we're now gluing in the pommel. So yeah, all that went pretty well. Really, we're just gonna let this hang out for a few minutes and then we'll take it off and sharpen it and give it a test. Okay, so we just finished up putting an edge onto the very first dagger. This thing turned out super clean, just awesome. I just love this thing. And I know I say this about all my knives when I'm at the end, but this really is my most favoriteest knife that I've made so far. It just has a really cool look. It feels really good in the hand, and it's just cool. I turned a old rusty file, a hunk of wood, some, you know, metal bits I had laying around, a drill bit into a cool thing, a knife, a dagger, a blade. It's just awesome. For being a 1/4 inch thick, it cuts pretty stinking good. This thing is relatively thick. In fact, it's like 0.260 or something, so just over a 1/4 inch thick. And we got this thing pretty much apexed without doing a secondary bevel. It's pretty stinking sharp and pretty stinking cool. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you were entertained. Hopefully you learned something, either one or the other. And really appreciate you guys checking out the channel and checking out this 2-part build. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe or comment or thumbs up or share the video if you liked it. That would really help the channel grow. I'm at about 400 subscribers at the moment, and that is awesome. My goal is to get to 1,000. That would be super sweet. And yeah, I really appreciate any interaction that you can give, whether that's a comment or whatever that may be. So anyway, here in a minute, I'll be doing some close-ups of this thing. I'm also working on just kind of a sheath for it. This is kind of made out of some thinner scrap leather that I had laying around, so it's not going to be anything too super fancy, but something with just a belt loop and something to kind of protect the blade and keep it from cutting stuff that you don't want to cut while you're fiddling with it and moving it around and such. So yeah, there you go. We got one dagger done. One dagger under the belt. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for the next one to come. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, but I know it's going to be epic. They're all epic. YouTube's most epic knife-making channel. Anyway, thanks again, and enjoy the close-ups of this awesome dagger.